week 2 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers this week. The first guy, Baker Mayfield at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Baker Mayfield, he looked pretty good in week 1 for this Tampa Bay Buc team, and they won that ball game. And he had a good fantasy performance: 173 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, and 11 rushing yards versus the Minnesota Vikings. So right now, Baker Mayfield, we know he has pretty good weapons over there. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin out of the backfield. You got Rachaad White. So right now, this week, he's got a pretty good matchup on paper, I think, here versus the Chicago Bears. They got shredded by Jordan Love in week 1. So right now, Mayfield, I know in the deepest of leagues are 2 quarterback leagues. You really want a deep dive sleeper. I think Baker could be that possibly for fantasy owners. And right now, he's available in 86% of fantasy leagues. Next quarterback's Mac Jones of the New England Patriots. So Mac Jones, he had a surprising good week 1. I know they were down early and often, 16-0 versus the Philadelphia Eagles was this New England Patriot team. But Mac Jones hung in there, and he put up a huge fantasy game, over 25 fantasy points, 316 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception, and 15 rush yards versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So this week here, it gets a little bit easier in terms of matchup versus division rival Miami Dolphins coming to town here on Sunday Night Football. So you know the Dolphins, they put up points in a hurry with an explosive offense with Tyreek Hill, Tua, Jalen Waddle. And this week here, if they want to win this ball game, I don't know if this is really going to be a defensive battle. Points are going to be scored once again in this one. So week 1, they put up 20 points with this Patriot team. I don't think Mac Jones is going to go out there and throw 3 touchdowns, but I think something like 200 yards, possibly 2 touchdowns and an interception or something definitely is doable. So right now, well, he's available in 80% of fantasy leagues. And if you're desperate at quarterback, I think he's a sleeper option this week. And the third and final quarterback I have as a sleeper, C.J. Stroud of the Houston Texans. So C.J. Stroud, obviously, wasn't a good week 1 versus a tough defense. We had to drop back 44 times and pass 242 pass yards versus Baltimore, 20 rushing in that ball game, and a fumble loss. So right now, it gets a little bit easier versus the Indianapolis Colts coming to town and the Texans home opener. And even though I know this Indianapolis team, they get turnovers, but they do give up a decent amount of points. And I think Stroud could get things going a little bit. Him and Nico Collins got on the same page at the end of that ball game. I think Dameon Pierce is a solid running back in the backfield. And it's also a plus as well that this ball game's indoors over there at Houston. So right now, Stroud available in 91% of fantasy leagues. And if you're real desperate at quarterback, it wouldn't be surprising to me if he could have a serviceable game with 15, 18 fantasy points at the position. So that's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers for week 2 of the fantasy football season.